Hi, I'm Lin Shaye, and welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Podcast. And I mean it, don't go out there.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. I just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate all the support. And like I said for our last interview, we always like to bring the legends of the horror genre on our show. And wow, we have another amazing guest for you guys tonight. We are thrilled to be joined today by another legend in show business in the horror genre. She has over 200 credits to her name and a phenomenal career that spans over 4 decades. Known best for her role as Elise Rainier in the Insidious franchise, Miss Lin Shaye. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. I hope I can live up to that intro. That was really beautiful. Thank you for introducing me in such a loving and professional way. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're amazing. We always like to start our interviews off just by asking what got you into acting, Miss Lin?
Well, it's interesting because I never per se decided to be an actress until much, much later. I think what got me into it is I love storytelling, and that's something I did from the time I was little. This is a story I've told before, but when I was a little girl, like 5, 6 years old, we didn't have a lot of kids in our neighborhood, so the way I entertained myself was in my room with all my clothes and my dolls and my stuffed animals, and I would make up stories. I would put on different outfits and have different voices, and my animals all had a place in the storyline, and it was, I guess, for a little kid, it was pretty intense, and my mom was great. I mean, because some parents are more interfering than others, but my mom knew I was safe, and whatever I was creatively doing was positive in terms of my own growth, and indeed it was. So that's kind of where it started, and then school plays, and on to high school plays, on to college plays, but I was an art history major in college. I went to University of Michigan, and I was not a theater major, but I was always in shows and always looking. So it was always my fun thing. It was the thing I loved the best.
Right.
And what wasn't until I finished school until I got my first job at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in the registrar's office in the basement, sort of, which was actually a pretty cool job because I got to go into the Met at 8:30 in the morning and walk through the Egyptian exhibits with all the scary sarcophaguses and Egyptian things. And so that sort of fueled my horror imagery probably at some level. And anyway, I just thought, I miss being in a play. So I ended up quitting the job and applying to graduate school. And I went to Columbia University, had a new theater arts program. I was accepted in the acting program, and I finished that in New York, a 3-year program, and then sort of segued into off-Broadway theater. So suddenly there I was doing the thing I never really decided upon, but sort of led me to fulfilling what I love the most, which is a real key when you think about that for people who push themselves into a place they go, well, I'm supposed to do that. But it's important, and this is sort of just a kernel of philosophy. You got to really follow what your passion is, because we're all good at something different.
Right.
Not everybody's good at the same thing. And if you find yourself good at something, try and find a way to incorporate that into your life, because it makes you happy. When you're always fighting your own instincts, you're not a happy person. So bottom line is, I am a really happy human being. I love what I do. I'm grateful I'm good at it, and I know I'm good at it, and that's not from an ego place. It's just from an awareness of my own gifts.
Right.
So anyway, that was a long way of telling you that story, but
No, that's awesome. And especially this kind of plays off of your happiness there. I mean, people think of comedy and horror as, completely two separate genres sometimes, but I mean, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive at all, and one can definitely play off the other. You've obviously got tons of experience in the comedy field, working with the Farrelly brothers, from Dumb and Dumber to There's Something About Mary, and of course Kingpin. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. I always, when I ended up coming to Los Angeles, I lived in New York for a long time. For 10 years, I did theater there. It's another long story of how I got to LA, which is a great story, but let me kind of answer your question. Um, uh, my brother, Bob Shaye, started New Line Cinema in 1968. You
Right.
guys probably weren't even born then. But anyway, and it was literally, he started it in his living room. Another example of following your thing, and so he didn't have an office, but he had a desk and he had a pen and he had not even a computer yet. There were no
Right.
computers. So
Right.
he had his telephone with a thing and a dial probably. Not quite that far back, but
Right.
and so Bob, I was at Columbia in school at the time, and he started this company, and it sort of segued into becoming a production company, even though it originally started out as sort of they did not conventions, but speakers. He had speakers that he would book at different college campuses. And then he wanted to make films. Bob was always interested in photography and filmmaking. And this kind of, so slowly but surely, his first movie was a movie called Stunts, and they started producing other films. And the Farrelly brothers, this was I'm trying to think what year, 1995, is it? 95, 96, somewhere in there. Pete found New Line. They had this movie called Dumb and Dumber
Oh,
that
yes.
that had never been, I guess apparently they had taken it around, and Pete had never made a movie before. And he's a writer, and brought the project to Bob. And Bob said it looked good to him. So he also follows his gut kind of, and doesn't go by what other people's rules.
Right.
And he thought, I don't care who didn't buy it. We think it's great. And they got Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey, who were also just getting Jim especially was just getting his career going. This was was it before The Mask? You probably know,
I believe it was really close there together.
because The Mask was also New Line. So
Right.
Bob had, whichever came first, they got Jim and Jeff Daniels, which were two amazing. They're just amazing actors. So this cuts to, again, the answer to your question. I get a phone call, and I was just getting little parts, and my brother would always kind of humiliate me in public by saying, "This is my sister Linda. She wants to be an actress." And of course, I would always cringe and sort of disappear into the woodwork, because at that point I had not done more than, little tiny things on different movies or TV or whatever. And just by auditioning and trying to get myself out there. So anyway, I get a call from the casting director, who was Rick Montgomery, and he said, "Oh, we want to hire you for a day on a film that a New Line Cinema is doing." It was all very professional. And the character's Mrs. Newgaborn. And he sent me that one scene, and I thought, wow, like, who saw me somewhere? Like, what did they see that they were going to hire me? And so I called my brother, figuring to thank him. And he kind of hung up on me. He says, "Oh, get your own goddamn job." He was like, and so I thought, so that even made it better, because it wasn't Bob, maybe some stranger, some casting person or big other, producer had seen me. So I got the job. I went to, I think we were in Rhode Island. I went to Rhode Island for the one day. We shot the scene with Jeff Daniels. I was so excited because I loved Jeff Daniels, and these were really famous actors for me, and they still are. So, I had some good ideas in terms of the character. I always work the way I was trained. I worked with some of the best acting teachers ever: Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler, and Uta Hagen, who were my triumvirate. They trained me. And it's always about doing the work. It's not just saying lines. Who was this woman? I made her with the curly front of her hair because that she had poodles, and I thought how people look like their dogs.
There you go.
So we and I had a houndtooth coat. I tried to put all these sort of doggy imagery into my character, and Pete was really impressed. I mean, they all thought, oh, it's Bobby Shaye's little sister. You know, I didn't know they were thinking that, but they were, and I did a really, they really liked what I did. And I remember Pete was like, whoa, I really like that. Let's try that. And I had this thought at the end of the scene. It says she screams when she opens up the van doors and there's the dogs. And I said, what about instead of screaming, she whimpers like a dog? And so they put that in where I'm going, oh, 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 rather than a big, a real sort of classic comic scream. It became more about the dogs. So that was my introduction to the Farrelly brothers. And it was after that, I literally saw in the trades that they were doing this other movie called Kingpin. And the character was described as the angriest, ugliest woman God ever let loose on the planet.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, I got to play that role. I mean, those are the roles. That's what appeals to me, because it's that the extreme of humanity. And how do you make that real? How do you find that in yourself? Well, it wasn't that hard. but literally for 6 weeks, because the movie was, I sort of saw when it was when it was scheduled to start shooting. And I remember sitting upstairs in my bedroom. I found that outfit, Mrs. Dumar's outfit. I bought it on Melrose Avenue at a thrift store. And I thought, because it was and it turned out to be perfect because it was a 70s jumpsuit. And I didn't realize even that the movie was taking place in that period. So it was one of those moments where the universe hands you a gift,
Right.
And I remember I paid $1.50 for it, $1.50. I still have it upstairs in my closet. So anyway, so I bought this little outfit and I started experimenting with bad skin and bad teeth. And I put yellow on my teeth and I had eyelashes coming out of my nostrils that would look like nose hairs. And I tried to make myself as disgusting as possible. But in the meantime, I couldn't get an audition. They were all saying, we love your work. You did a great job in Dumb and Dumber, but we don't think you're right for this role. And I'm going, yeah, but and so they were 5 days. It was, because I remember, I think I called one of the producers who I'd met on Dumb and Dumber, a wonderful person named Steve Stabler. I don't know if he's even still in the business, but he became we chatted when I did Dumb and Dumber on set. And so my ex-husband said, call him and see if he'll get you an audition, because everybody else was ignoring me. So I actually get Steve on the phone, and he says, oh, we love your work, Lynn, but we just don't think you're right. And just as he's about to close the door, I said, well, I worked out this whole character on my bedroom floor that I would love to show you. And so he said, okay, I'll bring in, this was on a Tuesday, I'll bring you in Thursday. So I dressed up as Mrs. Dumars. Let me see if I've got her here. I can show her to you. You see, can you see her?
Yes.
She still sits proudly on my desk. So I got all dressed up and I drove to Santa Monica, and I went into to the building, and there were no chairs, so I sat down on the floor kind of waiting, and a half hour goes by and Rick Montgomery's walking back and forth. And finally I said, Rick, I've been, I'm not pushing you, but how much longer before you think you'll see me? And he said, Lynn? And I said, yeah. He said, we thought we had just almost called the police because we thought you were, you were off the street. So anyway, long story short, I went in, I auditioned, and I got the job. And they did everything I did. They chucked whatever wardrobe they had thought about. They used every single element that I brought into the characterization, and it's still to date my favorite thing. And that was, and then from there came Something About Mary, and then I did smaller roles in other films of theirs, and Stuck on You, and I can't even remember. There was a handful of just smaller roles. and then, you know, then we all went our separate ways. And of course, Pete has gone on. Pete is both those guys. I mean, I was in the Three Stooges. I had one tiny little scene in that. That was the last thing I think I did with them. And that was kind of their last hurrah in terms of comedy. And then, of course, Pete, you know, won the Academy Award for Green Book, which was just fabulous. They're brilliant, brilliant storytellers. That word again. So I am honored for them to have been the ones who ushered me into into the meat of my career. And they've been iconic characters. So
we all have them to thank then, for sure.
Oh, absolutely, Miss Shaye. I'm just gonna transition to the horror genre now, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. And if I'm talking too much, tell me.
Oh, no, not at
Oh,
all.
no. I love hearing these stories. Your most famous role now, you know, you're most famously known for now your character Elise in the Insidious franchise, which you were absolutely phenomenal in all 4 of them. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got that role and just about your character some?
Yep. I met James Wan through a mutual friend, a wonderful director named Tim Sullivan, who I had worked with on. There were 2 films called 2001 Maniacs, and then there was a sequel to it. I did with Robert Englund, and then Bill Moseley played the same character in the sequel. And so I met, and I don't even remember how I met Tim actually, but Tim was a sort of not a real close friend of James Wan, but a friend. And James had already done all the Saw movies. He and Lee Winnell had done all 8 of the Saw movies already. And James had made a couple other features, one which I actually auditioned for, and I didn't realize it was between me and the other actress who played it. I think it was called Dead Silence.
Oh, okay.
The marionette with the puppet.
Yes.
And I remember doing a great audition. I didn't know James at the time, but I didn't get it. And I didn't know what this, you know, you never know how close you get or how far you are. So anyway, so Tim came over one evening and he brought James with him because James was a friend, he was a fan of this movie I did called Dead End, which I think was 2003, which is also a terrific movie with, oh my God, I mean, it's just one of my all-time favorites. And so James came over and I had a copy of Dead End I gave him. And he asked me then a couple weeks later to be in a video he was doing with Lee Winnell, who I'd never met yet, called Doggy Heaven, which is a comedy, and which I think is still on YouTube. And it was a prequel to an Xbox release. So it was just this 9-minute, ridiculous, hilarious video of Lee Winnell getting killed and ends up going to dog heaven instead of people heaven.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I play this crazy woman with a giant hat and big boobs and big butt and a big smile on my face with little Miss Marple, who's my dog. And I shoot him. I'm the one that kills him. Because we have a road rage moment. The whole thing is 9 minutes, as I said. So we did that. And then about a week or 2 later, or maybe a month or so, James called and said, Lee, my partner, and I we're thinking of doing this other movie. We don't have a title yet. It might be called The Further. And there's a role I'd like you to look at, and of a psychic. And I said, sure. I said, great. I was excited. Anybody that offers me something that sounds fun. So he sent the script over, and it was a very scary script. And I remember I read it in bed, and I went and put it downstairs in the closet before I went to sleep.
Oh, wow.
It was just kind of, it just made me, I believe in everything. I'm not afraid of a lot of things. I'm much more afraid of people than I am demons, to be honest. I've sort of made peace, I feel, with the supernatural on some level. Hello, how are you? Yes, I know we're all there. Can't fool me.
You have to, yeah.
Really. So that part wasn't scary, but there was something eerie. And then I called James back and I said I would love to be a part of it. I just remember seeing Elise talked a lot, because she's the one that sets up the whole universe of The Further in that first film. So James said, yeah, well, we've got to offer out to Patrick Wilson and to Rose Byrne, and then literally, I think a day or so later, he calls back. He said they both said yes. I mean, because usually things can take forever. He said, and we're going to start shooting. So I said, okay. So I was in, and it was a 3-week shoot, and $800,000, which is a very low budget for an ambitious film. And that was the beginning of my relationship with them. And I remember Jason Blum talking to my manager, and it was kind of exciting because the character was not. I mean, there's Patrick and Rose are just both so brilliant and so beautiful, and I mean, they're so interesting to watch. And I never really. I mean, I'm not to toot my own horn, but there's really not much of a horn to toot. I feel like I do my work and I do the best I can, and I don't have any agenda about how it's gonna be or how it's gonna strike people.
Right.
So I did the best I could, and was very surprised when I sort of started hearing Lin was really, everybody really loves Lin in this movie. And I thought, oh, well, that's really great, and everything. And I remember that first part of the, When You First See Me, which is the third into the movie already.
Right.
I remember I said to James, let me both knock on the door and ring the doorbell at the same time. Like, she doesn't know. And my first line to them is, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know if the doorbell worked, which I thought was a great line for a psychic. In other words, she's good at what she does, but she doesn't know if she's got her shoes on or not.
Yep.
She's kind of that person. And it kind of set up this sort of endearing, I realized, I didn't know it at the moment, but it kind of set up this endearing quality of her. She was very warm and very familial and very open and also very much a person I recognize who's about you, not about herself.
Right.
And that is and I think sort of subconsciously, that's a very endearing attribute at this point in our lives, because people are so busy about me, my iPhone, my I. And that Elise is about, how can I help you?
Yes.
And you know very little about her, especially in that first one. And so that was the beginning. And, James, I remember, said, maybe we shouldn't kill you, because what if there's a sequel? And I said, oh, what the hell? Just get it. Just let Patrick kill me. It'll be a great scene. And, so that was kind of interesting, because then the second one, I'm in the further because I'm dead.
Right.
And when the character kept accumulating fanship, sort of, and appeal, that's when they went back. They said, well, we got to put Lin in the movie more, which was, I mean, what better news can you ever hear from a director and a producer that they want more rather than less? It's usually, let's get rid of that scene. And so anyway, so that's how that all went. And she developed as we went. And what's interesting to me quickly, because I know you got other questions, but my backstory for her was very different than what Lin wrote. And I wasn't sad that he wrote it, but I kind of, we never discussed it, but I saw her as an only child with no family, and that she was a loner, and that was how the spirits found her.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that was my interpretation from the start. And so she searched out other people and helping other people because she was lacking that in her own life. In a weird way, I still think that would have been a very good choice. But Lee, gave me a brother and nieces, and it's in the third one. I mean, there's a whole network of family,
right,
which works great because you bring in new wonderful characters. But that was never how I saw the character. And suddenly they started calling me Dr. Elise Rainier, and I'm going like, can I say it? What the fuck? She's no doctor. She's like this woman who lives probably alone and who has a dog, which I do have in the movie, and and who doesn't engage with other people very much. And I still think, in a weird way, that for me is still the way I see her. Even though we've been given these other elements. So.
Right.
Oh, yes, ma'am. And you were absolutely phenomenal in all 4 movies. The Brian sent me a text message that we were getting the wonderful Lin Shaye on the show, and a question that automatically came to my mind because me and Brian have discussed this several times. His favorite horror writer and director is Wes Craven, and
Yes.
mine is James Wan. Um, so, what was it like to work with two of the greatest to ever do it in the genre? What are some similarities and some differences between the two? Because me and Brian love both of them so much.
Wes, I still miss Wes. Wes was also New Line Cinema, was my brother, my big brother. Bob has been an incredible, if you believe in nepotism or you don't, well, I got it. Bob helped me enormously because that was also put my sister in your movie. That's what he would say to these directors for Alone in the Dark, what was it? Oh my gosh, I'm just blanking on the name of this. Jack Shoulder directed a couple of films, and Bob, same thing, put my sister in your movie. And he pretended he didn't. And by the way, finally he admitted that he was the one that helped me get into to Dumb and Dumber at one point. But Wes was probably one of the nicest people you've ever met, and also one of the most intellectually fascinating people. He was a virtuoso guitarist, classical guitarist.
Oh wow.
He was brilliant in so many different directions. He always I remember I did this episode of, this is kind of a funny story if you want to hear a Wes story.
Absolutely.
I was asked to audition for the Twilight Zone. There was a new Twilight Zone, not the Rod Serling one, but it was the same format, and Wes was directing some of the episodes.
Oh, okay.
So I had to audition. I got an audition for this one, and I went into, oh God, I miss the old days. Everybody's on tape now, self-tape. What about going in and I can't do that, and I come off terribly in those, by the way. I don't, because for me it's not acting. It's something that's different. That's
Right.
like some weird technological presentation that if you're lit wrong and anyway, this was real life, and we went in and all the producers were there and Wes was there, and it was kind of kind of an odd scene. I was actually playing an alien, but I was an alien that was trying to manipulate I can't remember the actor's name, a wonderful actor. The episode's called Chameleon, just so
Okay.
you know. And so I kind of played it, and it was kind of emotional. Like I was using him to sort of get sympathy from him so that I could, then take him, sort of. So the casting director at the end of the audition said, so we read it once, and he said, could you do it again a little less sappy? And I thought, you know what, I went,
There you go.
and that was like a knee-jerk reaction. If I'd thought about it, I would never flip off a casting director. And I remember Wes, who was in the back of the room, was like this, laughing his ass off. He was beet red, which is what Wes would blush a lot. And he was a handsome, beautiful man. And I remember he was just beet red, and you could see him shaking, trying to not show how hard he was laughing. And I got the part.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was Wes. And he just was the softest spoken, most violent man probably I've ever met.
Oh, really?
Well, not really. He was not violent in his real life. But when you look at the first Nightmare on Elm Street,
Oh, yeah.
none of them were as good as that, in my opinion. That was still it. The
Right.
first one was the best one. End of story. The rest, episode after episode. And I think I was also in the last one, which was, I think, the
New
seventh or eighth.
Nightmare. Yes, ma'am.
So I was in the New Nightmare, and those were the 3 times I worked with Wes. One on the Chameleon, and these other 2. And I adored him. And everybody that met him or knew him adored him. He was respectful. He was quiet. He was brilliant. He was loving. He was embracive. His talent had no limits. I really believe that. And everybody who ever met him really still misses him. So it was a joy. The bottom line is, it was a joy to be around and to work with Wes Craven.
That's awesome. So, kind of shifting gears a little bit, talk to us a little bit about your new movie, The Call, where you play Edith Cranston. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what it's about?
Yeah, this was a film that my manager had. I guess the writer is her. I don't know if he's her client actually, or if one of the producers was her client. But she had this movie, and I read it, and there were things I liked about it and things I didn't like about it. To be honest, and with all due respect to Patrick Stibbs, who is the writer and who did a wonderful job, but there were things. It was all kind of witchy. And I said, it's not. I don't think that's what this is about. I think this is about a woman who's been wrongly accused of she's been bullied by these children.
Right.
Because I always look for, that's the thing about the metaphysical, I don't look for that. I look for the humanity of each character, because that's all I can play. I mean, you can play, but it's like,
Well, that's what the audience relates to as well, I feel like.
I think so too, and I think that's part of also the reason. Instead of playing Elise, it's like, we are now in the other. Instead of playing her like those sort of corny psychics you see. Pardon the expression. There's a lot of wonderful psychics out there, but you find, what's the person? Who's the person? What is that? So we talked a lot about it, and Timothy Woodward is a fascinating, talented man who, I don't know if you know this story. I mean, I really do talk a lot. So again, but these are all great stories.
Oh, no, absolutely. Please.
He did a movie it was first called The Seven Wishes or something. And it was kind of an Aladdin's lamp story.
Oh, okay.
And he sent the script, and this is all, again, with all due respect to Jeffrey Reddick, who is brilliant and who created Final Destination. I mean, but it was just, and so I'm not, and anything I say like that has nothing to do with Jeffrey. It has to do with the way something hits me, right or wrong, that I sort of, that's what it looked like to me. It looked like you rub the magic lantern and the genie, the bad guy appears. And I thought there's got to be more to it than that too. So I read it and I said, I don't know. And they offered me a really nice salary, which is also, so we sent it back to Timothy. And they came back with more money. So I read it again, and I kept going, if we could only, and I just can't. I can't do an Aladdin's lamp movie
Right.
where I'm the genie, where I'm bringing out a genie. So we sent it back to Timothy again, and so we passed. So this is number 2. So he sends it back again. And he says, okay, we made some adjustments and we're going to talk about it like this. And they upped the salary again. And finally, I said to Gina, let's just meet with this director and talk about it a little bit in person.
Right.
So he met I had a meeting at Sony, and my manager, Gina Rugolo, is one of the greatest people that I know, let alone such a fabulous manager. And I've been with her over 20 years, and God bless her heart, because she's always steered me right, with stuff. So I was at Sony, so we said to Timothy, okay, come meet us. We'll meet at Marie Callender's to talk about this movie. So we come out of the thing, and I see Timothy literally run. He's 3 blocks away, and we're like right on, we're like 2 minutes or whatever. He's in a suit and tie, sweating like a pig, running, like transversing traffic across Wilshire Boulevard.
Oh, wow.
Trying to make sure he's on time. And he comes and he kind of pulls himself together. And he's also from the South. He's from, I guess, it's either North or South Carolina. Okay. So he's got that beautiful Southern accent. And he says, and he calls everybody ma'am. And so there we are, sort of like, we're all like deer caught in the headlights. And we went into Marie Callender's, and I said, we really, these were the elements that didn't really work. And he said, oh, well, I'm not going to do it like that. So we said, oh, okay. And so we started talking about his concept, which was totally great.
Right.
And so Gina said, well, let us see another rewrite. So this was The Final Wish. So they changed the title to The Final Wish. It ended up being a terrific film and did extremely well. And Timothy had only made 2 or 3 other films before that. They've all done great. because he knows how to market what he's doing. He's got to deal with, I guess, is it Synogen? I never know. There's Synodyne and Synogen.
Right.
I forget which is which, but he's got to deal with them. He's a brilliant director and a wonderful director for actors as well. So we made that movie, and cut to, this is how we got. So when Gina and I got this other script, we said, let's take it to Timothy. So it was us, they brought it to Timothy. And once again, he was really open to suggestions. He got it made. I mean, he got the money. Suddenly we had, it's still a low budget movie, but he took it and he financed it. And lo and behold, we shot it. And Tobin Bell, who is extraordinary.
Oh, Mister, I was just about to ask you about Tobin. I absolutely love Tobin.
We all love Tobin.
He's my favorite horror icon ever. I love the Saw franchise. John Kramer I love John Kramer. He's absolutely amazing. He's a phenomenal actor. And just so are you. And I can't wait to. I was going to ask you what it was like to work with him, because I'm super excited to see Miss Lin Shaye and the great Tobin Bell together. I'm super excited for it.
Well, I knew also, don't forget that he, it was Lee Winnell and James Wan who made his career.
Right.
As well as me. So the idea, the horror community, when I heard that and Gina, she knows Tobin's manager, and it was Gina's idea, my manager, to get Tobin Bell to do it, which I thought was brilliant. Wow, so, and he liked the material. So for me, that is, for all horror fans, you've got your two, the fact that people are so receptive to me, and I know Tobin, they adore Tobin. He is wonderful in the film, just wonderful. He plays my husband, and we had a terrific chemistry right away. I'd never met him before. We had never had the pleasure of working together or even meeting each other. And we immediately had a real, just mutual simpatico on screen. So anyway, that was how this came to be. And Pablo Diaz.
Pablo Diaz. Okay, I was just looking it up too.
Was totally, and he works only with. Now, I don't know if he works exclusively with Tim, but he's shot every one of Tim's movies from the very first. He is fantastic. The movie looks so scary.
It does. It looks great. Absolutely.
And I got to tell you, when I finally saw the cut of it, it's gonna. I hope people see it, because it is exquisite, as well as such a fascinating story, and it becomes about being bullied. And you meet Edith Cranston, who is basically, this was also all Tim's idea, to make her really human and really humane, that she ran a daycare center. And so we have this whole other we have a backstory of her, in the trailer, does everybody have a cookie? She's this loving woman who loves this little girl, and the little girl's like her favorite. And she gives her a little present, and it's the little girl who she's accused of murdering by the teens who live in the town, this kind of small town, and they harass her to a point of damage, big damage. So.
Yeah, and it looks like you went through some pretty extensive makeup for that zombie undead type look. I mean, is that all makeup, or is any of that computer generated effects?
Oh, that was all makeup. A long makeup session. And again, I'm remiss that I don't have everybody's names in front of me, because I should, because they all deserve to be mentioned. The woman that did our makeup, she did everybody. She did everything. She did special effects makeup. She did straight makeup. She did beauty makeup. She did everything. And she also is one of Tim's people, who work with him, and Pablo.
Is it Ching to Sang?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And she was adorable and beautiful and fun to work with. And we were shooting in this old house out sort of in West LA that was really an old mansion that was really scary. And also, we think, really had mold in the basement where we were working.
Oh, wow.
At the end of the movie, none of us were feeling that great.
Oh, wow.
So it sort of ended right on time.
No doubt.
Yeah, really. But she was fantastic. totally fantastic. All Tim's people, he surrounds himself with really great people who are really gifted, really imaginative and creative, and really kind.
Yeah, those effects definitely look great.
Oh yeah, I watched the trailer and I'm super excited. And speaking of the trailer, this movie is coming out on October the 2nd, just a few days, from right now when we're going to release this podcast. Can you tell the audience where they can watch this at or where it's releasing?
It'll be released in I don't have the list of theaters. Tim will have that. But it's worth checking out. There were a whole list of some drive-ins and some big theaters. I think there's some big theater chains that are going to open it as well. So if you wouldn't mind to check with him, because he will definitely provide you with that. It would be wonderful to be able to promote those theaters too who have accepted the film. So and we hope there will be future showings on VOD and all that stuff as well. But right now, seeing it in the movies is the way to see it.
Right.
Oh, it looks awesome too. I haven't been to the movie theaters in well over a year probably. Too long, and I would love for that would be the first one I go see in theaters because I love you and I love Tobin Bell, so that'd be phenomenal.
You will. I think truly, if people can see this on a big screen, they will have a different impact, as all movies do. I mean, you really. So take the opportunity. I can say if you can publish whatever that list is, or at least talk about it. I encourage everybody to see it on the big screen if they can, and get yourself out. There are a lot of drive-ins it's being shown at, so get yourself out there and see it on the big screen, because I think you will scream at the big screen.
So, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, I'm sure the pandemic has slowed down some productions that you may have going on. But what does Miss Lin Shaye have coming on down the line? Do you have anything you'd like to talk a little bit about?
Oh, brother. God, I'm really. This has been a really hard time for me, kind of emotionally as well as physically. I am doing actually a big video game, which I've never done before, for a digital domain, which will be out probably next year. I can't say too much about it, but we've been shooting that, and this is a new one for me. I asked, I have a wonderful character in it that we've done the mocap for, and which is very kind of crazy, and it's difficult. It's not so easy.
Right.
And there's a script, so so I asked, of course, to see the script, because the next series of meetings we will have will probably be with the director, and we'll actually be shooting scenes. 956 pages.
Oh, wow.
Whoa! I mean, it almost crashed my computer. So that will be coming, and there's another Zoom film I did. This will be probably sold to Netflix, I guess, or hope that it's what they're hoping for. It's called We Are Gathered Here Today, and it's got wonderful actors in it, and it was all shot on Zoom. And the storyline is the patriarch of a family, a well-to-do family. The guy is a tennis player and really virile, guy in his 60s. 60s or no, he's in his 80s. I think he just turned 80, but he's still one of these guys who, is nonstop. And he catches COVID, and within 3 days he's dying.
Oh, wow.
And I play, Jenny O'Hara plays his wife, and I play her sister. So I'm the sister-in-law, and there's a whole group. They have kids and grandchildren, and it's really about the family trying to come together at a time where they can never be together. Wow. And it's all improv, and it was really powerful. So that will be something. I have no idea how they're going to handle it, but keep your eye open for that. We are gathered here today.
Okay, that's very interesting.
And I did also Daniel Ferrand, who is a wonderful horror director, who did the Sharon Tate. I can't remember the exact, but he did the Sharon Tate movie a couple of years ago. Is doing a movie called American Boogeyman about Ted Bundy.
Oh, wow.
And I play Ted Bundy's mom.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And and Chad Michael Murray is playing Ted Bundy.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Okay.
wow, okay.
Oh, it's and it's awful.
It's
Awful
awfully great.
in the best way.
Right.
It's
Right.
really scary. And the mom was quite a piece of work. I mean, I did quite a bit of watching her on whatever video was available, and um, so that was really fun. So that's really what I've been doing during the pandemic, and the rest we will see what's going to be. I'm hoping there's not violence in the streets in the end of this year, and I really think there will be. I think we're in for a very upsetting next few months. I hate to be a naysayer, but this political thing is. I mean, I can't get into discussing it because there are two sides to the story, but to me, there's one side of the story, and it has to do with humanity and generosity and empathy and anyways, big issues that are very hot. People are mad at each other, hating each other. The hatred in this community right now is just insane and very upsetting.
You're
So
right.
I'm
It's almost a no-win scenario, almost just about. So.
Oh, it is a
Right.
no win because there's not going to be. I mean, I don't think we may not even have another president for a year. I mean, it's because it's going to be lawsuits and contention, and it's going to be crazy. So I'm wishing everybody the best, and I am going to cry. This is a terrible time. This is a terrible time. We're struggling in more ways than we should be, and I honestly think it is all man-made. Not that COVID was made in a lab, but we have raped our planet. I have to get political for a minute. We have raped our planet. We have ruined our food, our soil, our air, the fires. I mean, it's just insanity. So we're paying the piper. We did it. And I got to tell you, I'm not optimistic about the planet. I mean, I think it'll get rid of us eventually and then start over. That's what will happen. It has happened before. And we're not too far away from making that happen. And I'm very, very distressed by the animal that we have become. I'd rather be with my dog and my horse. I have a horse, and I'm the luckiest person on the planet to have a horse. I mean,
Awesome.
I mean, that's who I want to be with. I don't. The pandemic and the people, whatever.
No, I'm right there with you. I get it for sure.
I miss my family. So I'm also Jewish, and so tonight will be the beginning of Yom Kippur.
Oh yes.
Which in a weird way to me is not even a religious holiday. I think it's a holiday of. I think the whole world should commemorate in terms of shut up, stop eating. Pay attention to what's going on inside of you. Commune with whatever it is and whomever it is that make you feel whole, and investigate the mistakes we've made. The one thing that I find interesting about Yom Kippur and about the Jewish religion is that there's sins from man to man. You can't ask God for forgiveness for a sin you've committed against a person. The only person that can forgive you is that person. And I find that very interesting, sort of philosophically.
It is. Wow.
So I wish you all a good fast, a day of, even if it's not atonement, again, this has nothing to do with religion, that it's a good day to take one day a year out of your life and to really think about things that are spiritual.
Right.
Whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be my God, my religion, none of that. But think about what's important of man to man. We really need that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I love all of you guys. Thank you for inviting me to yak here for all this amount of time.
Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we'll make sure we do our absolute best to promote the call. Look, I'm really looking forward to seeing that myself because I love you. Excuse me, I love you and Tobin Bell, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And everything you just said was very powerful. That was a powerful moment. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm an actress also. I feel I'm a communicator, and that's part of my job, is to tell the truth. That is my job.
Yes, ma'am.
Not even part of my job. That's it. And if I don't do that in my work, and maybe that's why my work is appealing, because I don't bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't pretend. I find that in myself to deliver to you, to open that up in you. That is why I'm an actor.
And that's absolutely right. That's great. That's probably why everybody loves you so much.
Well, I hope I like it. I can't say, oh no, don't. Yeah, do. Yeah, I'll take it.
Well,
Okay.
thank you again. Have a
You're
good
welcome.
weekend.
Thank you too. Stay
Thanks so
Happy Yom
much.
Kippur.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lin Shaye, for joining us. Go see The Call, starring Lin Shaye and Tobin Bell on October 2nd, and keep an eye out on our social media for that list of theaters if we can put our hands on it. And as always,